I've been touched in strange places by humanity. Hello and welcome back to the Blue Banana Podcast. My name is Liam. Below me is an annoying vibration, which you can probably hear. My neighbors are doing some work.
Yeah, the reality is his neighbor is doing some work.
Vibrating work.
Some work. Some very loud, very vigorous vibrating. I honestly don't know what it is. This happens from time to time.
You could say they're hammering away down there.
There is a business down there. It's less sexual than it sounds. But
There's some real grinding going on.
Lots of drilling.
They are getting down
Drilling
to
into
business.
holes.
And at quite an auspicious time of night as well. Business should be closed by now.
Well, maybe they left the back door open.
Maybe. There's always options. Manu, how are you doing today?
Well, now very good, seeing how Sophie enjoyed that last joke of mine.
Sophie, how are you doing today?
I feel so much more tame. I feel relatively tame.
Tame.
How
Okay,
you
so
doing,
good
tame?
and tame.
Not the answer anyone expected for that question. Do you say that too when your neighbor asks you? Hello, Sophie, how are you doing? Tame.
Tame.
Today, very tame.
Well, there's no drilling going in my backyard, so...
It is all me. It's unfortunate that I'm hosting today because of all the drilling. I'm really hoping that they stop soon. But you know how I'm feeling, everyone? Hungry. You know why I'm hungry? Because I have just finished binging 12 episodes of
Farmlands.
12 episodes of Farmland Saga, where there is just wheat on display every episode, and it makes me want wheat products.
Bread.
Pasta?
This wasn't a quiz.
Barley. Tea.
Beer!
Beer as well, yes, absolutely. No, I'll take all of the above.
You can even make alcohol out of wheat,
Well,
as
yes,
far as
beer
I know.
is alcohol.
Yeah, like some sort of beer.
I mean, yeah, no, but like a spirit.
Manu doesn't count beer as alcohol. That is like bread and water.
That is soda, right? That's correct, right?
Season 2 has come out after so long. I didn't even know it was out. You guys told me it was out last week, and I was like, how did I miss that? How has this like stealthed its way back into
Has it?
has it? I haven't seen anyone talking about
I
it.
feel like my Twitter, like when it came out like 2 months ago or so, like there was a lot of Farmland Saga on my Twitter page at least.
I didn't see it on my Twitter either. The only reason I knew is because it came up on my Netflix, which is really weird because I had to binge as well. I actually had to binge from season 1 because I never finished season 1. I think I watched like 12 episodes, over 12 episodes today, so that I could talk about it.
You've crammed for your test today, essentially.
Yes, basically. You can ask me anything. I've been revising.
Question number 1. Who is Thorfinn's father?
Is it Thor?
So is that correct? Like, I'm not sure if you know that better than me, but like as far as I remember, it's like you kind of take the second part of the name and then you inherit that to your son. So like Thor Finn, and then it would be like Finn Gull or whatever.
Yeah. So his name was Thor's Snorrason.
But like, what was his father then called? What was Thor's father called?
Thor's Snorrason.
I don't think they're sticking by that sort of naming convention for the entire series or for all the other characters, because if you look at like season 2, if you look at the, what is it? Is it, oh fuck, I've already forgotten. Kelt?
Kettle.
It's not Celtic. Kettle. Yeah, okay. The only sort of naming similarity I've noticed is that if you're a fighter, you have Thor in your name. And I wonder why.
All of
yeah.
the really strong people
Yeah.
have some kind of Thor.
Yeah,
Thor.
it's Thorgil,
Thorkel,
Thorkel, yeah,
Thorfinn.
yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I think they're covering quite a lot of different cultures also, because it's like you have like
Yeah.
Denmark, Norway, Finland,
Iceland,
Sweden,
England.
Iceland, England, yeah.
Wales.
Wales was a big one last season. Not so big this season. This is probably the best representation of Wales I've ever seen in any media, Vinland Saga.
Just hills.
Yeah. It looks good. Like every other piece of Wales media I see is about fucking sheep. So Vinland Saga did pretty well.
Literally fucking sheep.
Yeah. Welsh representation with Askeladd. Best Welsh character of all time.
Like, really riding on that Roman heritage. That's the best thing to have going for them.
Well, Sophie, I'm actually interested because you're the most recent big binger. You've had season 1 and season 2. I find season 2 to be, like, with the exception of some of the Canute stuff, a very different series, a much more
Oh, yeah.
chilled experience than the
Oh, yeah.
blood and violence that was just persistent all throughout season 1. How has been that shift for Sophie, you?
How's been For you, my man. No, I noticed that too. It's like tonally, plot-wise, like the themes, even the pacing, like it's almost like you're watching a different anime. The feeling that I got was almost as if Vinland Saga is actually like a series of anthologies where you're looking at like different types of human beings across different seasons. And like in season 1, it's all about the Vikings and like the warriors. And now you're looking at it from like the farmers and like the villagers' perspective.
If I'm not mistaken, that's generally what a saga is, yeah? It's like a set of stories surrounding a certain family or heritage within Norse mythology.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's also very interesting because the first season was very much focused on kind of establishing Thorfinn's kind of like backstory and what world we're operating in and a little bit like the politics behind it. While Thorfinn was like still the main character there was like obviously him going from the innocent little boy to like kind of dead inside, out for revenge, living by killing. Like there was that part of his development, but then for most of the season, like once that happened and his father died, there was like a bit of a time skip to him actually like, you know, having run around with Askeladd and so on and so forth for like 2 years. There was not a big focus on like him as a person. Like he was very flat as a character at that point. And so that's like what this season is all kind of about. Like so far at least, it was like all first season super zoomed out and like him kind of being in the midst of things. And now it's super zoomed in, like one farm.
Laser focus.
Him, yeah. Very different, but very like from season 1, but in a way also very refreshing because I think what some series suffer from is kind of doing the same thing again and again, where it kind of becomes a little bit repetitive. I mean, some stories also do that well, like don't get me wrong, but I think it's very refreshing to see kind of, as you say, that like different take on something and a different lens.
I think it works particularly well with Vinland Saga because I don't know the author's name off the top of my head because I've never actually read the manga. The author really understands how to create environments and atmospheres, specifically within a European setting, which I think is very impressive for someone who I assume is of Japanese heritage.
His name is Yukimura Makoto.
Yukimura Makoto-san. Because I was really fascinated about just like this period of history because it's obviously historically influenced. I like history about the Middle Ages. It was sort of one of my favorite periods that I used to like read about when I was younger in like high school. And I've sort of like left it in sort of more recent years, but this sort of watching it renewed that in me again. So I was wondering like what got him interested. And when I did some research, it seems like he actually did go traveling to a lot of the countries and he like went to visit to like look at the ships and actually have like a really good idea. And I think I read, but he really struggled because he did not speak the language.
Fair enough.
I don't think he spoke English either.
That's all right because all the characters in Vinland Saga speak Japanese, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Convenient. That's
also,
convenient.
can I just say, I think it's especially crazy that all of these characters can be speaking Japanese, like fluent, perfect Japanese, and I'm just like, yeah, this is Europe. This is absolutely historically accurate Europe. I believe it.
I'm not sure if this was Vinland Saga. I know I've seen like other anime before where they actually, I don't think it is Vinland Saga, but I've seen an anime before where they basically start the first half of the first episode of the pilot by like showing the setting in the original language, and then they're kind of like flipping it to Japanese.
The Hunt for Red October did that, didn't they? They started the movie in Russian and then just transferred into English just to set things up, I think.
Which I enjoy as a move, because you kind of get the vibe, what they're all actually sounding like, and then but you get kind of the synchronization of it.
It sets the stage, and then you're like, all right, now magic. Let's all just pretend, everyone. We're going to pretend that this is a thing that could happen.
Well, there are a few points in the first season when I think they have like comments and they have dialogue where they're like, wait, you speak our language? And you can understand me? It's like, well, yeah, you're all speaking Japanese.
Well, it's all Japanese. What the fuck are you talking about?
Actually, on that point, something really annoying about Netflix. I had some problem with my Crunchyroll and I still have a problem with them right now. For some reason, I don't know, they've screwed up my membership and they've taken my premium membership away from me, so I haven't been able to use Crunchyroll unless I just sign up with a new membership. I just haven't gone around to it.
It's just like,
oh yes, stick through the 4 ads that play at the beginning and then like 2 every like 5 minutes. Luckily, they do show it on Netflix, but for some reason from episode 9, there is no English subtitles. They have literally every other subtitle under the sun, like other language under the sun, to the exception of Korean as well, because I was thinking, well, if I can't watch it with English subtitles, maybe I might as well read read it in Korean and try to boost my Korean language skills.
They
that
basically
way.
went full anti-Sophie.
So I actually had to go back to Crunchyroll.
I had a fun
I'm
experience,
sorry.
fun cultural interaction with a group of Korean businessmen when I went to Osaka the other weekend. Because I went with a friend, and I was basically like, our routine was the hotel we stayed in. They had all-you-can-drink, a free alcohol bar for the entire evening. They also had a spa area, it's like hot, like onsen and like sauna and stuff. And so basically, our routine was get 2 highballs and then go into the sauna and the onsen, and then like do that on Circle. So I don't recommend that, but it was a good night.
With these random Korean businessmen you just met.
Yeah, I was like sitting fairly blasted in the sauna, vibing, and then like these like Korean businessmen came in, and they were like, "Oh, it's so hot in here," and then they were like, and then the one guy who could speak English, like he was like, "You tourist?" And I was like, "No, I live here." It's like, "Oh, no English." And so we were getting along. We started getting along. They were like, "Oh," like they basically didn't speak English. I didn't speak Korean, obviously. I was like, "The only word I know is oppa," and they were like, "Yeah." So at some point, I figured out that they were just as hammered as me. So we had a really good cultural experience there. In the
Cultural
Japanese sauna.
exchange, yes.
Yeah, we were basically just towards each other for like 10 minutes until it got like too hot for everyone in the sauna because too much movement. It was fun. It was fun. They were very
unbearably
enthusiastic.
social.
Alcohol crosses borders, I guess.
Absolutely. As you see all the time in Vinland Saga, alcohol is the one thing all of these cultures have in common.
Especially the priest in season 1. That was,
Oh, he's cool. He has a bit of an alcohol problem too.
that was a very interesting quirk.
I will say, I'm not as keen on the openings of season 2. I get that they are like, openings, there's only been one so far. I get that it is a bit more laid back, but I really miss the Viking rush that really grabbed you by the balls of the first season.
I mean, I do guess it goes with the
It goes with it perfectly.
with the vibe. Yeah, I'm actually very curious. So like, unlike with like other series where I actually have read the manga, like Attack on Titan or something, like I have no idea. Like I'm super anime only with Vinland Saga. So I'm very curious if this is going to be like the entire season or if it's going to like split at some point and like it's going to change kind of its tone towards the halfway point.
I mean, it looks like it's changing tone pretty next week.
But even if it's changing tone, I don't think that necessarily means it's changing arcs. Like my understanding is that
Yeah, it's still at the farm.
arc-wise, it's still just part of the farm.
Still
part of
farm.
the farmland.
Still farmland, sorry.
Except now we're bringing the world to the farm because Knut's being a dick.
Yeah, Knut's character development's been very interesting.
Yeah, he was one of my favorite parts of season 1, going from like useless princess to taking those few steps, and I'm really compelled by him now in a terrifying way. He has this almost Macbeth style character arc happening with the curse and all of the lust for power, and he's kind of going the opposite way of Thorfinn, who is now like,
reaching
I am a
enlightenment.
pacifist. I will never harm anyone again. So they've really reversed courses, both of them.
Yeah, which I will say, even without knowing the the manga, pretty sure that's gonna not work out that great for him.
Yeah, it's now we're about to invade the farm, I imagine, and Thorfinn's going to be faced with some hard, dramatic choices.
Isn't there like even a new episode today? I feel like I haven't seen today's.
Yeah, there was a new episode today.
Yeah, I haven't seen
I
that
watched
one.
it.
I watched it literally an hour ago.
Okay, I'm not
Me too,
that
me
caught
too.
up.
It's really good.
Yeah, it's a good episode.
Okay.
That's how we know things are changing pretty radically starting from now.
Yeah, I was like, clearly you're ahead of me here.
It's a shame because it's the one that's most fresh in my mind. It was really good.
Yeah, because it's the latest one we watched.
I can watch
Yeah.
it right now and you guys talk about it. I'm with you guys.
All I'll say is, what's his name? The son? Olmar? Is
Yeah,
it?
Olmar.
The really bad at life man. I'm really compelled by him. Because he looks like he has a bit of a Helmeppo style character arc happening. Where he's
Okay.
going from like useless pompous dick to potentially semi-useful guy who does the right thing maybe. I don't know.
And like self-aware.
I'm compelled by
I mean, he has the looks for
characters
it.
like him. Yeah, he does. He does.
Yeah, definitely. One of the characters I'm not necessarily compelled by, but I'm very invested in is if Leif dies, I think that's going to break me. If Leif dies, that's going to break me. And if Helga dies before Thorfinn returns home, that's going to break my heart. I don't think I'm going to be able to deal with it.
Well, some people are definitely dying.
Death will occur.
I mean, I think they are going to die. I would even say that Helga will probably die. I wouldn't be surprised if Helga dies. But if she dies without getting to have seen Thorfinn, I would be very upset. It was sort of like, I think you guys both watched Squid Game. When he returned home at the end of Squid Game and his mother was already dead, I think that actually made me sadder than Ali's death. And I think most people were enraged about Ali. But I don't know, I couldn't deal with that.
Is it because you could identify more with having a mother rather than having an Ali?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I think it's just a lot more tragic. Like, everyone who went into Squid Game, like, were going to die, and it's sort of expected. But, like, the only reason why he went into Squid Game was to save his mum, and then it's just very tragic. Like, he leaves, and it was all for nothing.
That's true, though. I mean, fair enough. I mean, there were, like, a few tragic deaths in Squid Game, too.
I'm not saying that Ali's death wasn't tragic. I'm just saying that emotionally, I feel very invested in Leif for no reason at all.
I agree, and I don't like that he's stepping into a battlefield.
He was not in the story last time I watched last week.
No, I guess the last time you would have seen him was right at the beginning where he was looking for slaves.
Yeah,
actually,
exactly,
no,
when
you
he was
should have
looking for
seen him by now.
No, he
You
was
should have
in
seen him
season
last
2,
week.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
In
true.
the
He
last
was in the story.
episode, yeah.
With Bug Eyes, who looks like Thorfinn.
Yeah,
Also
no,
named
that's true.
Thorfinn.
Yeah, also Thorfinn.
was there, yeah.
Thorfinn too. Wears very similar clothing as well. Sophie?
What's happening?
Okay, sorry, my earphones just suddenly cut out for some reason. I couldn't hear you guys for the last, I don't know, minute or so.
Oh, well,
But
we
I'm
could
back.
hear some TV.
We could hear
in the
something.
background.
Don't know what it was. Yeah, it stopped us both.
Are you
in our
watching
tracks.
something in the background? Are you watching TV while you're, like, doing the podcast, Sophie?
Scandalous.
One person vibrating, another person giving us here
They
different
haven't
microphones.
stopped yet. We've been recording for 20 minutes and they're still going. What the fuck do they do? It's 7:30 at night. Ugh.
It's peak time. Peak time to be going for 20 minutes. Good stamina.
7:30 is not night, by the way.
Oh, so that you have very clear, like, standards on, but noon can be whenever, but
Yeah,
evening and night,
yeah.
very strict.
very strict. You can say evening, you can say starting 8 maybe.
That is a reference to Manu and time. We once tried to, I think, record a podcast at quote noon, and we couldn't decide when noon was, because that could mean probably any time 2 hours after midday or before midday. Who knows?
It's like when you say afternoon, for me is like starting like 2:30 or something.
Oh, it starts at 12.
No, not in my book, it doesn't.
I actually had this discussion with my friend as well, because she wanted to grab food at, I think it was around 3 p.m, and she called it brunch.
No.
In my head, no, right?
I mean, if you haven't
Exact
had lunch,
opposite.
breakfast yet, then it's brunch.
That's Lina. Or whatever.
That's what I said, it's dinner.
3 p.m. is not even close to dinner time, though. When do you eat dinner?
Brunch is like 10:30, 11 o'clock. That's acceptable brunch.
No. I think 11 to 1 is fair.
The point is that it slots between lunch and dinner. Like, it doesn't slot between lunch and breakfast. It's after both of them.
Yeah, if you're eating at
You
1,
guys just eat
that's
too
just
early.
lunch.
Objectively,
If
it
you're
is.
eating at 1 p.m, it's lunchtime.
Not if you haven't
Yes.
had breakfast.
No, you're just eating
No,
lunch
it's
for
still
breakfast.
lunch. You just missed breakfast.
No, it's brunch.
And then when you eat dinner, it's lunch. But then the cycle restarts again. Do you eat dinner the next morning for breakfast because it just keeps going?
But at that point, why call it brunch? Why not just breakfast in that case? Because it's literally the breaking of your fast. So if you call it breakfast, that makes sense.
No, because it's time for lunch.
Why don't we all just call it meals 1 through 3 and we can mix up their order throughout the day? And
Speak for
avoid
yourself.
all
I
of
don't
this.
eat 3 meals a
Oh,
day.
I eat 5.
more or less. Yeah.
No, I eat 2, actually.
2 and 5. So Sophie takes one of Manu's and another one as well.
And another one.
I find someone else's to steal.
Weak mess.
Do you really eat 5 a day?
Not proper meals. Not lately either.
So you do breakfast, brunch, lunch, dinner? Wow, you are a proper hobbit.
You are a hobbit in every sense of the word.
But also, in recent times, I haven't been able to. I've had to cut back a lot on what I was eating because I haven't been able to do any sort of exercise
with
because
your
I've been
foot.
on because of my boot. So
boot.
I've had to cut back on what I'm eating.
But now you're back.
I'm still in pain. So I was expecting, I thought if your foot heals, it just heals. And that's the end of it. I was very surprised when they were like, okay, you can take your boot off now. You're fine to start walking. And I had to ask, but I still feel pain. And even on the x-ray, you could actually see that the bone hasn't completely,
Healed?
it hasn't completely formed. Yeah, there's still a crack, but apparently it's fine to walk on.
Because you're small.
So I can't run. What does me being small have anything to do with it? We just needed to
There's
slip
not
it
that
in.
much weight on that bone. Center of gravity is low.
There's also not that much bone either, so it can snap like a twig. Sophie, You're an adult now. Injuries don't heal.
You don't know. Maybe Sophie has like massive shin bones.
As someone who has toethritis, which is what I call the arthritis in my toes, I can confirm that I do not have big bones.
Massive bones. Okay, good to know.
Would have guessed, would have been shocked if just massive feet on tiny, tiny body. Like clown shoes sort of thing.
Very much the opposite.
What part of your leg did you break?
It was my 5th metatarsal, which is basically the bone connecting the pinky toe.
Oh, so it was your foot, not your...
Yeah, it was actually
like...
not my foot, not my
Pinky
ankle.
toe.
Okay. Well, now you have increased pain resistance, like the people in Vinland Saga.
Sure, alright.
Another scar to add to the collection.
Actually, that's always something that's very interesting. Like, I think there's like some research on that where like crazy situations like that, when you're like lose like an entire arm, like your body has like a different pain tolerance there, obviously, than when you like stub your toe on like the corner somewhere. Like that already feels pretty defty, but apparently like your brain kind of acclimatizes to like the level of pain you experience there.
I imagine you would go into a form of shock as well with something as massive
And
as losing
adrenaline,
an arm.
probably.
Yeah.
Like when you're actually fighting a battle. I'd actually like one thing I always wonder, which I would be very curious about, is like in general, like historically, or like when you're at war, like during those historic wars, you know how sometimes there's like someone gets like punched in the stomach, or like there's like some street fight, and then people die later on because like they have like some sort of internal bleeding. Like how many people survive the battle just to then like die because of like impacts they had on like their whatever liver or whatever?
Depends on the battle, because generally I imagine armor would stop a lot of that if it was of a certain age in a certain battle.
But for example, like spleen is like something that like often leads to like really like dangerous or even deadly situations where like you get like a trauma to your spleen and it ruptures like from a fall or something.
Yes, I forgot that knights leave their spleens vulnerable due to knightly tradition.
I don't know, like you just fall from your horse or something, or like someone, whatever it is.
Well, don't fall from the horse, you dick. You train.
Yeah, just don't fall from the horse.
I think you're right though, Manu, because I'm pretty sure I've read a lot of historical accounts where they say, and then they died because of injuries that they sustained in battle.
Or like infection must also have been.
Yeah,
pretty...
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, if you get like a little cut, you're dead.
Sad times.
Sad times. All right, Manu has vanished.
Manu has gotten himself injured and sustained death.
Sustained death.
Fatal injuries from battle injuries.
I got exiled to the Shadow Realm.
Oh, the Shadow Realm. How mischievous. Manu, as someone who is currently in exile from Europe, I was just wondering, since you're the resident ex-European, have you ever been to the Denmarks or any of the countries in Vinland Saga?
Yes. I've actually been to every of the Vinland Saga countries except Iceland. I actually even lived in Norway for almost a year.
I didn't
yes,
know
to
that.
study abroad in good old Trondheim.
Sorry, what were you studying?
I mean, while I was there, I was not really studying at all. I was mostly like drinking and partying, but I was studying business engineering.
Oh, like it was part of your uni, like an exchange program.
Yeah,
or
it was
something.
part of my master's, yeah. No, it was great. Great country. I really, really loved Norway.
Between us, we've been to all of them, because I can cover Iceland. I've been there, so now we've done everything. Most magical country in the world.
Did you find all the elves?
Didn't find any elves. Saw plenty of rocks that people told me not to go near. Some elf rocks. But that's actually what really captivated me about Vinland Saga, because the first few episodes take place in Iceland. And even though it's like Middle Ages Iceland, it still manages to capture that feeling that I experienced when I was there, because Iceland, it doesn't really matter that it's a modern country now, because it still looks like it's just timeless.
It looks like Middle Earth, really.
It does, because it's just completely untouched, or almost completely untouched by humanity. It's just been allowed to grow naturally.
Liam.
Yeah, I've been touched in strange places by humanity. Please stop.
Yeah, there's drilling going on right now downstairs.
Still vibrating downstairs.
Still, they don't stop.
No, Iceland definitely on my bucket list. Like that's a strong want, have to go.
Highly recommended. It's the only country I've ever been to that feels like I've stepped into another world. It's, if you want the isekai experience, you like start your new life in Iceland for sure. Also, everyone's really friendly. Like,
Aw.
stupidly friendly in Iceland. They're all wonderful. And there are trolls in the streets of Reykjavik.
I mean, same for Norway. Super polite people. Everyone has like a lot of money because I guess they're kind of like sharing the oil money with the population there. Everything is grossly overpriced, except like salmon. And something I learned recently here is that like Japan doesn't fish salmon in the Pacific, because apparently Pacific salmon very known for like parasites and stuff in it. So all the salmon you get in, or most of the salmon, I guess, I wouldn't go as far as saying all, but apparently a really big chunk of salmon you eat here in sushi restaurants comes from Norway.
So it's not even like fresh native Japanese sushi. It's all imported.
Yeah, I think so. Apparently, like in the early 20th century or like late 19th, like the Norwegians found the way to like farm salmon, right? And like the giant farms that they have there. And they were like, oh shit, we have so much salmon now, and we have no one to sell the salmon to. And then some dude went to Japan and they were like, oh, you guys love fish. Do you want to buy our salmon? And Japan was like, no. And so that guy met like another guy from like a Japanese like refrigeration company, or like, and they basically make like a deal where they like got the salmon for like a cheaper price. And then the Japanese company, they did like a big marketing thing in the early 20th century. So yeah. That's how you got like salmon sushi.
Have you considered making documentaries, Manu? I think you have a really concise way of tackling what could be very tricky subject matter. So then this guy met another guy and he was like, you want some fish? And the other guy was like, yeah. And then Japan did a marketing thing and the salmon.
For some really good deals.
That's literally every Johnny Harris video in a nutshell.
Yeah, just get out some maps and you can replicate him perfectly.
And just a lot of simplification. I mean, that's how I make my content at this point.
I gotta say, no, I was kind of into it. I was really taken by your story. You had me the whole way. Like, it just kept taking so many twists and turns. And then there was another guy, and then...
Can't tell you're being sarcastic.
No, I'm
not
legitimately not. I love that kind of vague speak, because I don't need to know people's names. I just need to know that something happened, two people got together, they did a thing. That's history.
Very true.
All right, good.
Otherwise, it's just cluttering my brain with useless nouns that I don't need.
That was the intention. Happy that, okay. I was not sure there if you were like making fun of my story.
Your story was superb.
I even had a twist in it.
You didn't just have one twist. You had so many twists. New characters appearing and...
Yeah. And a conspiracy, the salmon mafia.
Salmon mafia.
Anyways, little fun fact, because like when I found out about it like 2 months ago or something, and like that blew my mind, because I can't, for whatever reason, I think like everyone, I just assumed that salmon sushi was just something extremely traditional to Japan when it's really not.
I would have assumed that.
Yeah, I would have assumed that too.
Yeah, right.
But it actually makes sense for Australia as well, because I don't know if you noticed, Liam, because you don't really like seafood. But if you go to buy salmon at the supermarket, for example, it mostly says Atlantic salmon. I don't think I often see anything called Pacific salmon, now that you mention it.
And it's a fair point. Do we have Pacific salmon? What happens to them?
Yeah, there is. No, there is. There is like a lot of like salmon types in the Pacific, but apparently, yeah, they're just not considered to be like, yeah, apparently. Which I wonder, like, for example, why is it okay? Because like the tuna, for example, which is like a lot more, like that's definitely traditional in Japan, like tuna hunting and stuff like that. Why is that not contaminated? Or maybe it is. I don't know.
Maybe it's, what did you say it's contaminated with again?
I think like just like parasites or something, yeah.
So if it's parasites, maybe the parasites specifically like salmon as their host. And so the tuna is free from contamination. Or maybe it's because they can't get any sort of cheap tuna anywhere else. So they're like, we're just going to have to deal with the contamination.
Deal with it, population.
It's an expensive fish.
And stinks.
Do you get annoyed? Okay, you never really worked in the office, hey? I always wonder if I bring like a can of tuna and have that with rice or salad.
Do not.
For lunch, if people get upset that I open can of tuna.
Full disclosure, I've never worked in an office, but I have lived in a share house of like 7-8 people in uni. Like fish is a faux pas. You do not leave fish anywhere near where anyone else is, because it has such a potent scent.
I mean, I'm not leaving it, but if I'm just opening it to eat it for lunch.
If you open it in a public space, immediately it's like whoosh. Like the scent covers everywhere.
I think you're hypersensitive.
I was about to say, I never had that experience. Also, having lived in several like share houses and stuff.
Everyone except for the person eating the meal is hypersensitive to the meal.
But that's a very subjective opinion.
It's not objectively smish. Fish
Smish?
smells.
Smish.
Smish smells bad.
When I feel schmish, I feel You're like, I'm gonna give up. I feel like it smells good. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, that smells good. I want to go eat some sushi, or I want to go eat something.
Okay, so I just like fact checked my story and it's correct, only that my timeline was wrong and it's even more recent than I thought. There was no salmon sushi in Japan before 1989.
Wow.
Wow. That's
That
when I was
is
born.
insane.
So basically, Norway started farming salmon worldwide, like for worldwide distribution in the 1970s. And then basically in 1989, Norway realized that they had too many fish. And they went to Japan that year, which was called Project Japan by the Norwegian
Creative.
fishery minister. The first time salmon exclusively for sushi entered the country and the Japanese market was in 1992.
Yeah, wow.
I am older than Japanese salmon.
That is ridiculous. So yeah, that's a real mind blow fact for you here.
Is salmon sushi cheaper or
Not
more
cheap?
expensive? Yeah, more expensive than other types of
No.
sushi.
I think
or-
salmon and tuna are like very basic forms of sushi, and then obviously there's like more like better parts of the fish or like better cuts of the fish, I guess, that are a bit more expensive. But per se, it's not considered like it's a very standard sushi thing.
So what about like fatty tuna, for example?
Yeah, definitely. Like for the tuna, you definitely have like 6 or 7 different pieces that can go in sushi, and they all have like their own different pricing category. I actually went to a restaurant once where they give you basically like half a tuna for like 8 people or something. And in case you're not aware, tuna's
They chunky.
Huge.
fucking
Yeah.
massive
They
fish.
big boys.
One thing I never understood, because I know like from the tuna auctions here in Japan, that some of them cost like ridiculous amounts of money. So like some of them go for like $200,000-$300,000. I mean, there are like truly massive fish though. And I do think like in the restaurant I went to, like when I say half a tuna, it's literally just like it's like half of it like lengthwise, but I think like the really good chunks have been taken out, like the really pricey cuts. And it's kind of like you're like eating like the top layer on the outside. But yeah, like those fish massively expensive. Yeah, so there's like one article from like January 4th this year where it's like giant tuna fetches $275,000 at Japanese auction.
And they make that money back off the one tuna.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not sure how you guys feel in general about, like, eating meat and stuff like that, because before I moved to Japan, I actually had been, like, eating way less meat, like, maybe once a week, really trying to reduce it, but, like, since coming back to Japan, it's really hard to eat vegetarian here, because everything has, like, meat in it almost. It's still, like, considered very much, like, a proper meal should have meat in it, or fish, and so, like, I kind of, like, switched to eating more fish, because fish per se, I know there's like heavy metals in it, and like nobody knows really how toxic or not that is, but per se fish is fairly healthy to eat, right? It has like a lot of like amino acids and like low fats, like no
He
red
says
meat.
dying.
I'm at the peak of my health.
But yeah, like on the other hand, like the fishing industry also very messed up, which is like, there was like this, what is it, Seaspiracy? Was that the Netflix docu? I mean, like, if all the facts there are correct, but like, it seems like the fishing industry is like worse than the, you know, battery like meat farm industry, even to a certain degree, which kind of fucked up per se. So,
Not surprising.
No, I wouldn't think so. I mean, it's all consumerism, really, at the end of the day. So,
like, one thing, for example, I didn't know for the longest time is like, in Japan, like, I saw they have like this technique, like how to kill a fish, where you basically like, you fish the fish and then they put like a nail through its brain, like a blade that gets inserted, and it looks fucking terrible. But then like the fish dies instantly, compared to what like most fish you eat, like they just get caught and then they suffocate on top of each other in like the ship, which is way worse.
which is way worse, but surely that's the one, like that's the norm, because imagining like someone having to go through every single fish, that would be such a time-consuming process.
What was that bottle, Liam? I know we're talking about serious stuff right now, but we have to talk about what you drink.
It looks like you're drinking out of cologne.
Yeah, it just looks like it's like you're drinking something illegal or something that's not supposed to be drunk.
We're in the prohibition era right
This
now.
is my perfume, Chanel number 5. Keeps me young. The tears of my enemies.
I fixed it.
These are all my enemies.
I have a lot of enemies.
All the tears I've vanquished on the battlefield of YouTube.
People that Liam defeated on Twitter.
Yeah. All my Twitter haters.
So I actually have a series of bottles that my wife got for me. So I've got this little one here, which is what I use for things like this, just to refresh myself. Then it goes up in scale to this one, much more reasonable. And then things just get absurd with this. And
Yes.
sometimes
That's when it gets absurd.
sometimes when I'm recording videos, when I'm filming them, I will purposely drink on camera, and I'll like start with this one, do this a few times, then I'll sneakily switch to this one, and then I'll end with this one. And I just like to read the comments
Use
to see
both
who
hands.
noticed, because some people think that they're losing their minds when the bottle gets too big.
It's such a specific shape too. That's hilarious.
It's so that it can slot in your bag easy.
Wait, really? How does that work? Like, you mean in between like your laptop or something? And it's
Yeah,
because
Yeah,
it's
so
like
that
a
it
book
can just
Okay,
sit
yeah.
in there like a book. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
much
fair
better than
enough.
taking like a bulky, roundy, bodily thing.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I thought so.
And it's a good conversation starter.
Yes, very true.
Or finisher, depending on your opinions on the bottle.
Anyways, what we were talking about, oh yeah, the cruelty of modern
Oh yeah, animal cruelty.
farming.
Yeah, what a wonderful topic. Yeah. Speaking of cruelty, Manu, have you been keeping up with Blue Lock? Because something very disturbing happened in some of the more recent episodes.
I have not seen the most recent episode. Like the last one I saw is the most recent one is where they basically encounter the international
World
boys.
5. That's what I'm
Yes.
talking about. That
Okay.
cruelty.
What is the cruelty there?
It's cruelty to language is what's happening with those guys. The
Well,
British
one guy
guy
was speaking actual
flawless.
English.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
The English guy, perfect. Everyone else is so Sophie. For your benefit, since you're never going to watch Blue Lock. Right now, we're currently at a stage where the main character is facing off against 5 of the world's top players.
Yeah, so he lost, but he also won, is what happened.
Yes, he did.
So we've moved out of the arena, like the Blue Lock
No,
arena.
no, we're still in Blue Lock, yeah. But the world's players have come to them. But obviously those top players are not Japanese. So we now have this language decision to make. Are we going to do the Vinland Saga thing where everyone speaks Japanese? Or are we going to have them speak their native languages, but spoken by Japanese voice actors?
Except one guy.
Except the British guy who speaks perfect English. That's fantastic.
Yeah, who's definitely an English voice actor, yeah. But then the Brazilian guy speaks English with a Japanese accent.
Yeah.
Or maybe what a Japanese voice actor thinks a Brazilian accent in English
Exactly.
would sound
It's a
like.
Japanese person unfamiliar with both English and Brazilian trying to combine the accent with English, but it's still so obviously Japanese.
Like, this is what I have, where the questions start coming in, right? Because surely, I mean, Manu, for example, you are someone who speaks English living in Japan. Like, they could put out some sort of advert.
They could have gotten you.
Exactly, they literally could have gotten you. They could find
If you're watching this, dude, I'd love to. Honestly, like, not kidding. Like, that's something I actually would like love to do in my life. Like voice acting, and that sounds like a lot of fun. Like if they have like German roles or English roles, I'd be down.
Well, they do, evidently, but they fill them with Japanese actors.
I can also do a really good like American Japanese accent. Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa.
Arigatou gozaimasu.
Masu.
Koro wa nan desu ka?
But it's really funny to scroll down to the Crunchyroll comments, because when that episode happened, I was like, okay, fuck, I need to know what people are saying about this. And so many people in the comments are like defending them. They're like, yeah, that's obviously what a Brazilian trying to speak English would sound like. Not everyone speaks perfect English, and it's just like, you dishonor Brazil.
That's interesting because there would be, I would imagine that there's quite a lot of Brazilian fans who enjoy Blue Lock because it's about soccer, it's about football. So I'm surprised that they're defending the choice of voice actors.
It's not Brazilians that are defending it. It's obviously English speakers who are getting mad on behalf of others, or getting white knighting on behalf of others.
Yeah. It's kind of like when what we talked about before, like watching The Boys, and there's like 2 Japanese characters, but they're
Yes.
both played by Korean Americans who have clearly never spoken or maybe had like Japanese in high school, and the casting director was like, good enough, you look Japanese.
Actually, though, you know what? I do get a sense of how these things might happen because a couple of months ago, I went to like a casting audition where they were looking for a Korean
For fried chicken.
person. No, it wasn't fried chicken this time. It was some sort of fashion wear, I think. And one of the requirements was the company was specifically looking for a Korean actor / model or whatever, Korean talent, and they had to be Korean. But obviously the casting was actually being done through a different agency who obviously was not very aware of differences or the subtleties between Asian countries because
Perfect.
there were lots of people that I saw who evidently weren't Korean, but as long as they could say one line, they could say some sort of like one sentence in Korean, that was sufficient to pass the test.
Annyeong.
But it was also like these people, like the casting agents, it seemed like they weren't very aware or not, like whether what they were listening to would be really good Korean or not. So yeah, as long as you look the part and you can say something that's obviously not English, seems like you could get the part.
So I'm assuming you didn't get it?
No, I didn't get the part. It was actually more of like a it wasn't so much acting, but also it required a lot of like a bit of movement, and I was still in the boot at the time, and during the time like they were planning on filming, I told them that I would still most likely be
Booted.
not able to walk around.
I mean, it's kind of funny because in that Blue Lock scene, like Rin, who is like the best player of the Japanese, like he speaks English too, and everyone's like, "Whoa, you speak English!
You're so talented!" And it's like the most broken English. It's like I can't take you
He's like,
seriously
"You will be
anymore."
very traumatized."
Here's the thing. In Japanese, I imagine that sounds super cool. Like how in an English show, someone starts speaking Japanese and you're like, whoa, he's amazing. It's interesting to have that experience the other way around because he is like this big antagonistic force who you're supposed to be like scared of and respect. And it just sounds like a joke.
I recently, like, with one of my Japanese friends, we like spent an entire evening just watching like anime clips where characters try to speak English. Which is hilarious. It's very, very funny. And like some are very self-aware, some shows. There's this one, I never watched it. It looks fun though. It's like about like girls who are in like in the band club. I think it's fairly recent. And they're like somewhere abroad and they're like, hey, yo, I am Bucho. We are Ogyak-san. And then like the one girl's like, you're doing a great job, but you're mostly speaking Japanese. And she's like, I love sushi. So there's a few really cool compilations of that on like YouTube, which is fairly funny, especially when they are self-aware.
To be fair, English must be an extraordinarily difficult language to learn, starting from a Japanese basis, because it's extraordinarily difficult the other way around as well, coming from someone who's tried.
I think in general, English is just a very difficult language to learn. I've never heard anyone say that English is an easy language to learn.
No, I think that's bullshit. For anyone who speaks a Roman language, English should be
for anyone who speaks a Romance language, you can transfer it, but like...
But even still, like
English is weird.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, I think the way that English developed is it took a bit of romantic languages, but it also took a bit of the Germanic languages as well. So for you, Manu, I think the transition might have been easier. Whereas, like, I've had conversations with people from, like, with French people, for example, and they still struggle with learning the English language.
But then they just refuse to also learn them properly, I feel like.
Those darn French.
It's because the English language is just the construction of it is quite dumb.
But to be fair, it's kind of interesting when you go to like countries like also Spain. Like when you go to certain regions in Spain, people just don't speak English, which always baffles me.
I went to Granada and I often found myself in situations where there was just no English speakers.
Also parts of Italy, yeah. Like when you go and France also really bad in many parts.
I mean, not bad. They don't need to speak English when they live
I mean, when you were growing up, Manu, did a lot of people speak English? And was English something, like, would it be common that you would converse in English in your everyday life?
No, but I feel like it was fairly common that everyone would speak at least to a certain level. Like you could at least, I think everyone
like to help a
can
tourist
kind
around.
of communicate. Yeah. But then, like if you go to France or Spain, there's like definitely areas or like where you talk to people and
100%, yeah. The further south you go in France, the more deep you really get into French country.
Do you think it has to do with sort of the political ties as well, like the political history between it? Like France and England have not had a great relationship, historically speaking. So maybe it's it's a matter of pride.
Sophie, don't start anything. They're allies at the moment, and we want to keep it that way.
That's true.
I have no idea why that is. Yeah,
I think
really.
it's more to do with urban areas because English has become like the global language. So if you live in a metropolitan area that doesn't speak English, it probably acts as a hub for a lot of English business, and so you just sort of learn.
I think it also probably depends on your like education system, because I know that France, like they even made sure, I think there's laws in France that like words don't get like, what's the right word for that, anglicized. What's the right term for that?
Anglicized.
Anglicized, yeah. Well, like for example, like we in German, like a lot of we import a lot of stuff definitely from English in like daily language stuff. But like France made it a point to like, nope, we're gonna develop new French words for like terms that are only
They
coined in
did.
English.
Instead of taking email, they have their own word, courier. They just refuse to take email. And more power to them, Good on you. Keep on developing French. Fascinating. And on that note, thank you all so much for watching another episode of this Blue Banana podcast. Sophie, do you have any member names to read out? Because I don't.
I sure do. Let's say thank you to Phoenix Fire Queen, Rise from the
Thank you, Phoenix
Ashes.
Fire Queen. Oh, I thought we were actually saying it.
All right, sure. Liam, go say it.
Thank you, Phoenix Fire Queen. I appreciate it.
I didn't ask you to say that. I just said say thank you, Phoenix Fire Queen. That was it.
I'll just put
That
this
was it.
away.
And also thank you, Facts for Days.
Thank you. Appreciate it. If you all also want to support the podcast, you can also become a member to help us, keep this up and hopefully this time long term. And otherwise, you can also feel free to give us anime recommendations to talk about or other topics. We're very happy to incorporate those into our podcast.
Yes,
and I'm
very
cutting
much
it
so.
purposely because like Liam's camera is running out right now, so he might just be gone in like 10 minutes or so. So he's like
5 seconds.
frantically putting in the chat like I'm gonna
We need to
Bye.
wrap this up. Okay, bye.